In the majority opinion that overturned Roe v. Wade, Justice Samuel Alito repeated a claim that is often invoked by anti-abortion activists. The claim is that under Roe, the U.S. is a global outlier, more permissive than most other countries in its abortion law. Is that true, and does that assertion tell us the whole story of abortion rights in America and around the world? My next guest is Margot Sanger-Katz, a reporter at the New York Times who covers health. First, Margot, let's get the facts on the table. It is true, as far as I know, that the U.S. is a rare country where abortion is a constitutional right. I think in no European country is it given that level of protection. And it is also true that the United States allows abortions up to about 24 weeks, which is a longer time period than most countries. Fair or not fair? Give us a sense of the outline.
Well, I think that would have been fair as of a couple of days ago, but because of this new Supreme Court decision, we no longer have a constitutional right to abortion in the United States. And so these decisions about when abortions will be allowed have been left to state legislatures, potentially to Congress. And I think that does make it a lot more like how abortion is governed in many other countries of the world. There are some countries where the courts have gotten involved and there have been constitutional rulings about reproductive rights. But for many countries, especially in Europe, these have really been legislative matters, and we've seen countries decide, with their parliaments what they want their abortion laws to be. I do think sort of technically it is correct that the United States was unusual in having a very expansive abortion right prior to this decision. But I think in practice it's a little bit more complicated. A lot of countries in Europe have laws that say that you can have an abortion for any reason up to about 12 or 14 weeks of pregnancy. But then after that, you can get an abortion if you have a reason, like a health reason or a socioeconomic reason. These reasons differ by country, of course. But on the ground, in real life, in many of these countries, it was in fact easier to get an abortion later in pregnancy than it was in some parts of the United States. And of course, that contrast now has become much more sharp.
And it's fair to say that the overwhelming majority of pregnancies, you tell me the percentage, happen pretty early on. They don't happen in week 22, 23.
That's right. Even in the United States, when abortion was technically legal up until the point of fetal viability, it's about 23 weeks of pregnancy, the vast majority, like 95% or more of abortions were taking place before that point. More than 90% of abortions in the United States happen in the first trimester of pregnancy. Ruth Bader Ginsburg famously said about Roe, which she supported, but she said it did have this bad effect, which was that it stopped the democratic process from finding compromises. And you could see that in Europe, where these decisions have been made by democratic legislatures, that they come up with these compromises which are, more in the center than the United States is at 14 weeks or 12. Germany is 12 weeks, I think. But as you say, after that, with reasons. Is it possible that we will come to some kind of centrist, moderate compromise in the United States? I think it's certainly possible, but that's not at all what it looks like right now. I think what we see in the United States right now is that some states are very comfortable with the kind of abortion rights that we've had for the last 50 years under Roe and are looking to cement that right and perhaps expand it to help people who want to come in from other states. And then, of course, there are about half of states in the United States that are really looking to ban abortion almost entirely. These laws that are going into effect, several of which have already kicked in the last few days, ban all abortions except in very rare exceptions. And in that way, they are very different from what we see in the rest of the world. Those kinds of laws exist in the minority of countries of the world, and the long-term trend has been towards liberalizing abortion law, not tightening them.
But that's very interesting what you say, that what we will end up in this country is two completely different sets of states. Some that have laws that are almost, in a sense, enacting Roe, and some which will have extreme bans on abortion. So the American average may end up at something like 12 or 14 weeks, but that will be because you have two completely different countries, one that has abortion laws that resemble more, Nigeria or something, and the other side which has laws that resemble the most liberal European country.
And of course, women can travel in the United States from state to state, and we've already seen that there are states even before this decision where it was hard to get an abortion and where women wanted to go someplace where it was a little bit easier to schedule an appointment. But of course, not everyone is going to be able to do that, and we do anticipate that the number of abortions is likely to decline as a result of these very strict state laws, and particularly because the states that are looking to limit abortion are kind of geographically clustered, and so that makes it much harder for a woman to travel. It's not just in many cases that she would have to go to a neighboring state, but that she might have to travel hundreds and hundreds of miles to reach a state where an abortion is legal.
Now, there is a hope that many Democrats have that this will galvanize Democrats, suburban moms and things like that. But it seems to me that the key is for the Democrats not to come across as equally extreme, that the country is somewhere in the middle. 70% are in favor of the pro-choice position, but they all grapple with where to set that limit. Does it seem to you that, I look at Chuck Schumer's proposal that abortions be allowed for even longer than Roe? Is the looking at other countries, does success come if you can present yourself as understanding that there's a need for compromise, or is it better to go hard and get your constituent?
I think it's hard to know because obviously the political and legal history of these other countries is different, but it is certainly the case that the kind of laws that we see in Europe, which say you can have an abortion for any reason early in pregnancy, and then later in pregnancy if there's a health reason, if you have some severe socioeconomic problem or something like that, that's where we really see American public opinion in general. You see about 2/3 of Americans, and this has been very stable for many decades, about 2/3 of Americans support abortion in those kinds of circumstances. They want there to be some kind of right to abortion, but they are in many cases uncomfortable with very expansive abortion rights that allow abortion for any reason until very late in pregnancy. And it's just very hard to see in our current polarized environment how the United States gets to a political reality, to a legal reality that reflects that kind of compromise consensus view that we see in other countries and that we also see in the American public at large.
Such a great point. How to reflect the majority of the country, the plurality of the country that is in the center and moderate on a lot of these issues. Margot, that was terrific. Thank you so much. We got to go. Next up, foreign policy panel about all kinds of things. Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Saudi Arabia when we come back.
Hey, did I tell you